Hello viewers, greetings of the day. Myself Rashmimala Kakoti. Today I bring before you a very interesting topic, melatonin, the hormone of darkness. This lecture is a part of lecture series organized by Zoological Society of Assam. Before I start my lecture, I want to share some of my life experience with you. Students, do you face this problem? Suppose your exam is ahead. You are planning to study till late night. But what happened? Suddenly you fall asleep in your study table. Another experience. Do you know what is jet lag? If you travel from east to west in the globe or west to east in the globe, suppose from India to America within short time by aeroplane and reach destination at midday lunchtime. But suddenly your body says, no, it is not your lunchtime. It is the time for sleeping. Very strange. It takes a few days to reset your biological clock. Do you think about shift worker engaged in night duty? When they go on leave, will not be able to fall asleep early for first 1 or 2 nights. Then again his internal biological clock reset. Now these incidents indicate that surely there is something inside the body who control our daily sleep-wake cycle. Now we discuss about this mystery one by one. Our learning outcomes are an overview of pineal gland, history of the gland, structure of the gland, introduction to melatonin hormone, biosynthesis of melatonin, melatonin and sleep-wake cycle, sleep-wake cycle disorders related to melatonin, effects of artificial light on melatonin secretion, therapeutic use of melatonin, other functions of melatonin, and mechanism of action of melatonin, that is the signal transduction pathway. Now we start one by one. Now about the pineal gland, first we discuss from history. Of all the endocrine gland, functions of pineal gland was the latest discovery. Scientists know about the existence of the gland, but they do not know its activities. Therefore, many mythological approaches were put forward with pineal gland. In the 17th century, one philosopher and scientist, René Descartes, described the gland in his book as a seat of our soul. Complete philosophical idea. Even in early 19th century, it was commonly known as third eye, the heavenly eye. Ultimately, it was 1958, for the first time, Aaron Lerner of Yale University established pineal gland as an endocrine gland by isolating its secretory product from bovine pineal gland and named it as melatonin. Although pineal gland is found in a wide variety of organisms with variable functions, it is extensively studied in humans, as its secretory product melatonin is linked with our circadian rhythm. Now, structure of the gland. Pineal gland is an unpaired small pine cone shaped gland developed from the roof of the diencephalon of the brain. as it is shown in the figure distinctly the position of pineal gland. It is situated in between two cerebral hemispheres. Histologically, it comprises of two main types of cells, pinealocytes and neuroglial cells. Pinealocytes are parenchymal cells with large rounded nuclei with prominent nucleoli. Primary function of pinealocytes are to secrete the hormone melatonin. Here in the figure you see secretory phase of melatonin. Now, introduction to hormone melatonin. Melatonin is the primary hormone secreted by pineal gland. Of course, extra pineal sources are also reported. These are retina, bone marrow cells, platelets, lymphocytes, skin, cerebellum, and in the gastrointestinal tract of vertebrates. Chemically, it is 5-methoxy and acetyltryptophan with empirical formula C13, H16 and 2O2. Melatonin displays high lipid and water solubility. That means it is highly lipophilic and hydrophilic. This is one of the important properties of melatonin. As a result, it can diffuses easily through most of the cell membrane, including blood-brain barrier and placental membrane, and also each and every compartment of the cell. It can pass. Now, what is the exogenous factor involved here? That is, the synthesis and secretion of melatonin is enhanced by darkness and it is inhibited by light. Now, other properties of melatonin is that apart from sleep-wake cycle, melatonin secretion is also linked with the 24 hours rhythmic variations of our different activities. For example, our blood pressure, daily variation of core body temperature, variation of hemoglobin content, variable chemical composition of blood, urine, etc. All these are linked with melatonin secretion. As a chronobiotic molecule, melatonin can cause phase adjustment of our body's internal biological clock. Disturbed circadian cycle is associated with sleep disorders, what we call insomnia, and impaired health. Insomnia is very common not in India, in whole world today. It is even not surprising that melatonin appears to have a number of effects on human biology which have not been fully elucidated. This is the introduction and properties of melatonin. Now we proceed to biosynthesis of melatonin, how melatonin is synthesized inside the body. Melatonin synthesis and secretion is enhanced by darkness and it is inhibited by light, and hence the name hormone of darkness. The most powerful exogenous factor behind its secretion is ocular light exposure. Darkness stimulates the pineal gland to secrete melatonin, whereas exposure to light inhibits the secretion. How this luminous information transmitted? This luminous information is transmitted from the special photoreceptor cells of the retina, what we call melanocytes, to pineal gland through a most important part, that is hypothalamus. There is a center, namely suprachiasmatic nucleus present on the anterior hypothalamus. Through this it transmitted from retina of the eye to pineal gland. Here the figure is self-explanatory. When there is light, then melatonin level and its secretion level goes down. On the other hand, when there is darkness, melatonin secretion starts. Now, how it is synthesized? Melatonin is derived from amino acid tryptophan. The precursor of melatonin is serotonin. It is a neurotransmitter derived from amino acid tryptophan. Within the pineal gland, serotonin is first acetylated and then methylated to form melatonin with the help of some particular enzymes. Let us see what is these enzymes. 4 enzymes are mentioned here: tryptophan, hydroxylase, decarboxylase and acetyl transferase, hydroxyindole O methyl transferase. Interestingly, the rhythmic secretion of all these enzymes are under the control of neural signal from hypothalamus. Once melatonin is synthesized, it is quickly released into the systemic circulation to reach central and peripheral target tissues. Circulating melatonin is metabolized by liver and appears in the urine. This is all about biosynthesis of melatonin. Now I proceed to the relationship between melatonin and sleep-wake cycle. In human and most of the mammal, melatonin regulates sleep-wake cycle. Melatonin secretion starts soon after sunset, reaches a peak in the middle of the night and decreases gradually during the second half of the night. Maximum plasma level occur around 3 to 4 am. At this time, serum concentration lies between 80 to 120 per gram per ml. During daytime, it abruptly decreases to 10 to 20 per gram per ml. Now this graph shows nicely that from evening 8 o'clock, melatonin secretion starts and it rises to its peak at 3 to 4 am and then at morning it abruptly goes down. Nearly 80% of melatonin is produced at night and reduced considerably at daytime. Now, what is the prerequisite for our sleepiness? Although there are so many factors are there, so far as melatonin is concerned, it has been reported that maximum sleepiness occur when central body temperature, what we call CBT, is its lowest level and melatonin levels are at its highest. This is the best time for sleepiness. Now, who regulates the melatonin secretion? The rhythmic release of melatonin is regulated by suprachiasmatic nuclei of the anterior hypothalamus, which is the central circadian rhythm generator. Now see in the figure how light passes from the retina of the eye to the suprachiasmatic nuclei of hypothalamus. Ultimately, it reflects on our physiology and behavior. Now, there are certain disorders related to melatonin secretion, which affects on our sleep-wake cycle. Melatonin-related sleep disorders involve either difficulty in falling asleep, waking up during the sleep cycle, or unable to fall back to sleep. Disturbed sleep is associated with disturbed melatonin synthesis, which in turn acted upon the central circadian clock of the hypothalamus, what we call feedback effects of hormone, and cause a chaotic situation in our internal environment. As a result, our biological activities become unsynchronized, leading to ill health. Of course, synthesis of melatonin and its concentration in the blood is not always equal throughout the life. It declines considerably with age. It has been speculated that this might be the reason why older people have more disrupted sleep, as because it considerably declined with age. Rhythmic secretion of melatonin starts from 3 months of age and gradually it increases. Now, there are some exogenous factors affect on melatonin secretion. Experiment shows that blue light with wavelength between 440 to 480 mm, which is shorter than the normal light, is highly effective in phase shifting of human circadian clock. Blue light suppresses melatonin biosynthesis, as it is reported in the Harvard Health publication 2016. Therefore, blue light is considered as a major contributing factor to sleep deprivation. Although today's highly advancing technological society, it's getting harder to go without artificial light, especially blue light. Why? It is a part of our digital world. Therefore, scientists have been cautioning against using blue light emitting devices before bedtime. Changes in sleep pattern in turn changes the body's natural clock, which has devastating health effect, as this clock dictates functioning of our biological system. Now, this figure is from Natural Bioscience, Harvard Health publication, where it has been shown that by disrupting melatonin secretion, how blue light affects our brain and body. Sleep disruption may cause impaired memory. It also makes learning harder. Sleep disturbance once over, it is long term, can cause accumulation of toxic substance, neurotoxin, which make it more harder to sleep. It is also a reason for depression and obesity. It increases the risk of breast and prostate cancer. It also affects on our eyesight. All these are the effect of blue light. Now, as you know, if there is any problem, scientists are there to immediately solve the problem. During the last 20 years, numerous clinical trials have been made on the therapeutic usefulness of synthetic, that is the artificially made melatonin in the different field of medicine. Here in the figure, you see there are different types of tablet form or in the form of dietary supplements. Melatonin is marketed in the at present. Now, it generated a great deal of interest as a therapeutic modality for various diseases related to sleep disorders. As a supplement, it is used for the short-term treatment of trouble sleeping, insomnia, very common today, due to age, due to jet lag, or due to shift work. Its efficacy has also been assessed in the treatment of ocular diseases, chronic fatigue syndrome, depression, rheumatoid arthritis, neurological problem, cardiovascular problem, and gastrointestinal tract disorders. Now, apart from sleep-wake cycle, melatonin has many other functions. Melatonin receptors are reported to be present in various parts of the brain and organ system. What it indicates? This indicates that apart from maintaining sleep-wake cycle, melatonin also has effects on other biological system. Let us discuss this. Melatonin regulates body temperature cycle and neuroendocrine rhythm. It mediates the release of reproductive hormone and hereby it affects on reproductive system. Rhythmic secretion of melatonin is responsible for rhythmic release of gonadotropin hormone, which in turn affects on release of two most important reproductive hormone, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. For this reason, many animals are seasonal breeders. Okay? It acts as a free radical scavenger in all cells. It is another important function. Hence, it is a potent antioxidant with anti-aging and anti-cancerous properties. More about its function. Experimental results showed that fetal clock is imprinted by maternal melatonin as it can passes through the placenta. Also, melatonin found in the gastrointestinal tract of newborn is of maternal origin. This indicates that our internal biological clock is inherited from parents to their offsprings. Melatonin provides time-related signal to the immune network. It stimulates the production of cytokine and enhances the activity of T helper cell. In this way, it also acted upon our immune system. Recent researchers have highlighted some important perspectives for using melatonin as a biomarker for early detection of certain diseases and their clinical follow-up. These are the other functions of melatonin. Now we proceed to mechanism of action of melatonin, that is the signal transduction pathways. Transduction pathways of melatonin is extensively studied with rabbit retina, ovine pars tuberalis and amphibian melanophores. Several inhibition and activation activities of melatonin has been reported so far. Recent researchers have highlighted exceptional multiplicity of actions of melatonin and hence it is regarded as pleiotropic molecule having several mechanisms of action. Up till now, scientists have claimed that melatonin acts through 4 different molecular pathways. What is these pathways? Binding to surface receptor, what we called it is second messenger pathway, binding to nuclear receptors, binding to intracellular proteins, and receptor independent radical scavenging function. Now in brief we describe all these pathways. First one, binding with surface receptor. That is the second messenger pathway. The best characterized pathway is the activation of two membrane-specific surface receptors, MT1 and MT2. Of course, MT3 also isolated, but still it is in the experimental stage. Both MT1 and MT2 are Z protein coupled receptors. Melatonin mediated cell signaling by binding to these surface receptors, that is MT1 and MT2, and forming ligand receptor Z protein complex. This produces a number of secondary messengers, including cyclic AMP, cyclic GMP, inositol triphosphate, etc. Activation of receptors leads to inhibition of cyclic AMP level here, as it builds up during wakefulness. This is one of the inhibitory activities, and consequently decreases of intracellular level of second messenger cyclic AMP. Here it is described the inhibitory effect of melatonin. Now this figure shows the melatonin, how it affect on inhibition of tumor growth. Melatonin, here it is shown that its receptors are sit on the surface MT1, MT2, MT3, and with the help of this they activate transcriptional factors, and ultimately it enhances apoptosis. Apoptosis is the programmed cell death which occur cell death to the tumor cells. Also, it reduced angiogenesis. As a result, proliferation of tumor cells are reduced, inhibited. This is the mechanism of tumor suppression by melatonin. Some other signal transduction pathways are binding to nuclear receptors. Melatonin passes through nuclear membrane where it is involved in epigenetic regulation of genes. Two nuclear receptors are isolated. It is shortly ROR oblique or RZR. Its full form is retinoid orphan receptor or retinoid Z receptor. It binds to the transcriptional factors with the help of these receptors. Now, another transduction pathway is binding to intracellular proteins. Melatonin has been shown to influence cellular functioning by attaching to intracellular protein, for example calmodulin, a calcium binding protein. But in this regard, knowledge is still in its infancy. Receptor independent radical scavenging. This is a detoxification function. Detoxification of free radicals are done by melatonin through direct scavenging or through interaction with detoxifying enzyme quinone reductase 2. It is an enzyme with oxidoreductive properties and hence protect our brain from oxidative stress. Now, this is the figure. This figure shows multifaceted actions of melatonin by using different pathways shown in the same figure. It coupled with surface receptor MT1 and MT2. It also binds with nuclear receptor ROR or RZR. It also shows antioxidative effects by binding with oxidoreductive enzymes. It binds with intracellular protein calmodulin, and in this way it activates transcriptional factors. This is all about the mechanism of action of melatonin. Now I come to the end of my lecture. These are the references. Students, one thing I have to mention, that as researches on melatonin is scientists' latest discovery, so in old edition of your textbook lots of information may not be available. So I go for preparing this lecture, I go through some research article and equally some research papers. These are the references for you. These are more references for you. Now I conclude my lecture here. Thank you so much. If any queries, you can contact me in my email ID. It is given here. Thank you once again.